Hi everyone. Today we're diving into Unit 5, Human Physiology, starting with Chapter 14, Breathing and Exchange of Gases. We'll explore how we get the oxygen our bodies need and get rid of the waste gas, carbon dioxide. So why do we even need to breathe? Think of it like this. Your cells need energy to do everything, right? They get this energy by breaking down food, like glucose. But to do that efficiently, they need oxygen, O2. It's like the key ingredient for unlocking that energy. The catch? This energy process creates a waste product, carbon dioxide, CO2, which is harmful if it builds up. So, breathing is the essential process of swapping the O2 we need from the air with the CO2 waste our cells produce. It has to happen constantly, every second of your life. Now, not every creature breathes like us. Depending on where they live and how complex they are, animals have different strategies. Tiny guys like sponges just let gases diffuse across their whole body. Earthworms use their moist skin. Insects have cool, tiny tubes called tracheae delivering air directly. Aquatic animals like fish, crabs, and clams use gills to grab oxygen from water. And land vertebrates like us, reptiles and birds, we use lungs. Interestingly, amphibians like frogs can use both lungs and their moist skin. Nature's got options. All right, let's trace the path air takes in us. It starts at the nostrils, goes through the nasal chamber, which warms, moistens, and filters the air. Super important. Then hits the pharynx, that spot at the back of your throat shared by food and air. From there, it passes the larynx, your voice box, guarded by the clever epiglottis flap that stops food going down the wrong way, into the trachea, or windpipe. The trachea splits into two bronchi, one for each lung, which then branch like crazy into smaller bronchioles, finally ending in tiny air sacs called alveoli. That's the destination. Our main respiratory organs are the lungs, located safely inside the thoracic chamber, your chest cavity, which is like an airtight container. The lungs themselves are basically made of that huge network of bronchi, bronchioles, and millions of those tiny alveoli sacs. They're covered by a double membrane called the pleura, with a slippery pleural fluid in between. This fluid is crucial. It lets the lungs slide smoothly as they expand and contract, reducing friction. We can divide our respiratory system into two main functional parts. First, the conducting part. This is everything from your nostrils down to the terminal bronchioles. Think of it as the air highway. Its job is just to transport the air, clean it, warm it, and humidify it. Then, we have the respiratory or exchange part. This is where the real magic happens. It includes the alveoli and their ducts. This is the actual site where O2 diffuses into your blood and CO2 diffuses out. How do we actually pull air in? This is inspiration, and it's an active process. Two main muscle sets work. Your diaphragm, the big dome-shaped muscle below your lungs, contracts and flattens downwards. At the same time, your external intercostal muscles between your ribs contract, pulling your rib cage up and out. Both actions increase the volume inside your chest cavity. When the volume goes up, the pressure inside your lungs drops slightly below atmospheric pressure. Like a mini vacuum, air rushes in to fill the space. And breathing out, or expiration. Normally, it's passive. No effort needed. The diaphragm and external intercostal muscles just relax. The diaphragm moves back up, and the rib cage moves down and in. This decreases the volume in your chest cavity. Less space means higher pressure inside the lungs compared to the outside air. So, air naturally flows out. Of course, if you force air out, like blowing out candles, then other muscles like your abdominals help out. Let's talk measurements. We can measure the air we breathe. Tidal volume, TV, is the air in a normal relaxed breath, about 500 milliliters. Inspiratory reserve volume, IRV, is the extra air you can forcibly inhale after a normal breath, like 2,500 to 3,000 milliliters. Expiratory reserve volume, ERV, is the extra air you can forcibly exhale after a normal breath, around 1,000 to 1,100 milliliters. And residual volume, RV, is the air always left in your lungs, even after you breathe out as hard as possible, about 1,100 milliliters, and this keeps the alveoli from collapsing. Now, if we combine some of those volumes, we get capacities. Inspiratory capacity, IC, is the total you can inhale after a normal exhale, TV plus IRV. Expiratory capacity, EC, is the total you can exhale after a normal inhale, TV plus ERV. Functional residual capacity, FRC, is what's left in your lungs after a normal exhale, ERV plus RV. Vital capacity, VC, is the maximum amount of air you can possibly move in one breath cycle. Breathe in fully, breathe out fully. ERV plus TV and IRV. And total lung capacity, TLC, is just everything. All the air your lungs can hold. VC plus RV. Okay, the crucial part, exchange. This happens mainly in the alveoli, and later between blood and tissues. How? By simple diffusion. Gases naturally move from an area where they are highly concentrated, high partial pressure, to where they're less concentrated, low partial pressure. Think of it like rolling downhill. Key factors are this partial pressure gradient, the difference in pressure, how easily the gas dissolves, solubility. CO2 is much more soluble than O2, and the thickness of the membrane they cross. Thinner is faster. Let's look closer. The diffusion membrane in the alveoli is incredibly thin, made of just the alveolar wall cell, the capillary wall cell, and a tiny basement layer between them. At the lungs, O2 pressure is high in alveolar air, low in incoming blood. O2 diffuses into blood. CO2 pressure is high in blood, low in air. CO2 diffuses out of blood. At the tissues, it's reversed. O2 pressure is high in blood arriving, low in tissues. O2 diffuses out of blood to the cells. CO2 pressure is high in tissues, waste product, low in blood. CO2 diffuses into blood to be carried away. So, O2 is in the blood. How does it travel? The vast majority, about 97%, hitches a ride with hemoglobin, HB. That's the red, iron-containing protein inside your red blood cells. When O2 binds, it forms oxyhemoglobin. Each HB molecule is like a taxi that can carry up to 4 O2 passengers. Only about 3% just dissolves directly in the plasma. The oxygen dissociation curve you see here shows how readily HB picks up or drops off O2 depending on the oxygen pressure. What makes hemoglobin pick up O2 in the lungs but drop it off at the tissues? It's all about the local conditions. Binding is favored in the lungs by high PO2, low PCO2, low acidity, less H+, and lower temperature. Release is favored in the tissues by low PO2, high PCO2, high acidity, more H+ from metabolism, and higher temperature. It's a clever system ensuring O2 gets delivered where it's needed most. Fun fact: every 100 milliliters of oxygenated blood drops off about 5 milliliters of O2 to your tissues during normal activity. Now for the waste product, CO2. How does it travel back to the lungs? It uses 3 routes. About 70% is converted into bicarbonate ions, HCO3-, in the blood. This reaction needs an important enzyme called carbonic anhydrase, mostly found in RBCs. About 20 to 25% binds directly to hemoglobin at a different spot than O2, forming carbaminohemoglobin. And the remaining 7% just dissolves in the plasma. At the lungs, where CO2 levels are low, these processes reverse, and CO2 diffuses out. You don't consciously think about every breath, right? That's because your brainstem is in charge. The main boss is the respiratory rhythm center in the medulla. It sets the basic, automatic rhythm of breathing. Then there's the pneumotaxic center in the pons, which acts like a fine-tuner. It can send signals to the rhythm center to adjust the duration of inspiration, which helps control your breathing rate and depth. But how does your brain know if you need to breathe faster or slower? It listens to chemical signals. There's a chemosensitive area right near the rhythm center in the medulla that's super sensitive to increases in CO2 and H+ ions acidity in the surrounding fluid. If CO2 or acid builds up, this area tells the rhythm center to increase breathing to blow off the excess CO2. There are also receptors in your major arteries, aortic arch, carotid artery, that sense CO2 and H+ in the blood itself, sending similar signals. Interestingly, O2 levels have a much less direct impact on controlling your normal breathing rate. Unfortunately, things can sometimes go wrong with this system. Asthma involves inflammation and constriction of the airways, bronchi, bronchioles, making breathing difficult and causing wheezing. Emphysema is a chronic disease, often linked to smoking, where the delicate alveolar walls get damaged, reducing the surface area for gas exchange. And occupational respiratory disorders, like fibrosis, can occur from long-term exposure to dust, like silica or asbestos, in certain jobs, leading to lung scarring and damage. Wearing protective masks in those environments is crucial.